Today's podcast is brought to you by Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. Accidents happen. Without the right coverage from the right insurance company, damage to your automobile can be a real financial hit. That's why Kentuckians appreciate the competitive rates and personal service they get from Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. When the unexpected happens, count on us to help you get back on the road. To request a free quote, find your local KFB insurance agent at mykfbagent.com. Kentucky Farm Bureau, big on commitment. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's good. It is. Is this the first full day of the holiday season? Are we allowed to say that now?
It is Friday after Thanksgiving, and therefore, hear ye, it is Christmas season.
Are we in charge enough to be able to tell everyone that it's on now?
I don't see any other Farm Bureau podcast fighting us, so I'm going to say we've declared it Christmas.
It is Christmas, and we're very excited. We have a great guest today to kind of lean into that idea a little bit, but I wanted to ask you a really big question that's been on my mind, and I think today's the perfect day to do this. Favorite Christmas movie that's family tradition or yours or what? What is your favorite Christmas movie?
So family's favorite is, no, I'm just going to go with mine. Mine's White Christmas.
Okay.
A dig, some bang. Like that was my mom is Anaheim Steamroller. Like that is her vibe for Christmas season. But us as children, like we need a little Melikamiki Mako. We need a White Christmas with the sisters, the whole thing. Like White Christmas is our movie.
That's a good one. Yeah, I'm a big National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation guy. I know all the lines. I think it's obviously exaggerated movie about family, but I think there
are some themes there, though.
Everyone's got a cousin Eddie, I think, in their family. I'm not gonna say who, but we all might have a cousin Eddie or two, like everyone else. But yeah, I love that movie. It's just not Christmas until I've just ran into that. That's my other rule is like I just have to like bump into it on TV. You know?
Yeah, you're supposed to naturally run into your favorite Christmas movies.
If you're just like scheduling it and watching it, I don't think that counts. You just gotta be like, oh, look what's on, and you just sit and.
However, you are supposed to have some female in your life constantly seeking out a Hallmark movie.
Yes,
like that is a staple in a household.
Yeah, the closest. We watch some of those. I think the big one that we watch is Love Actually. Is like my wife's number one. But I love National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's just the lines. There's so many lines in that movie, and it's great.
There's just so few that I feel comfortable saying on a work podcast.
This is not. It's not Farm Bureau podcast. Cleanness is no. It's just a great movie.
That's why we don't have video. We're all actually wearing those quotes on our T-shirts right now. No, I'm kidding.
Right. But yeah, I love this time of year. It's exciting to get to this part of the year. For us, it's around a big event, the annual meeting.
Next week.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I've always kind of just wrapped annual meeting into the Christmas season for me. So it's fun to get to do that, see all the Farm Bureau folks, and just celebrate a good year in Farm Bureau, and then transition into celebrating just a good year in general with Christmas and all that comes with that. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, farming is a family, and Farm Bureau is a family. All the touchy-feely things we say at that meeting, but they're really true. And my whole team makes fun of me. You have the same problem. Annual meeting is the hardest place to get from point A to point B, not because there's a crowd. It's because you want to hug and say hi and check on how the family's doing, because I only see some of those people truly once a year. This is the moment we get to see them. They bring their families up to see Santa Friday night. Like there are just a lot of core Christmas memories for people that start at annual meetings. So, and the guy we're talking to today, John's the best. We have had him at many, many Farm Bureau meetings. He's a farm market member, and I think this is a great time when we talk about farm markets. We always think the spring. We think flowers, we think vegetables, we think fruits, we think apples. I think this is a cool time to remember that some of these guys are still kicking. We've got poinsettias, we've got wreaths, Christmas trees. And his is cool because we're going to learn how long it takes to get some of this stuff going. It's not snap your fingers and it's going.
Yeah. I think he's a guy that he's always thought out of the box. He's a marketing kind of brained farmer as well. He does a lot of neat stuff. And he's done a lot of it with beef, but he's jumping into a new adventure, and I'm sure he'll do it really well, like he does everything. So, we're going to talk some Christmas trees today. Pretty cool to learn a little bit. This is stuff I didn't know about, and he's just a really interesting guy. So I think folks will really like this.
Yeah, so grab your eggnog and get ready. Without further ado, I'm Renee Carrico.
And I'm Matt Hilton.
And this is Between the Rows. How's it going?
It's going well. Got a great guest who's joined us today, and we appreciate you coming in. This is going to be a fun story. I think a lot of folks are going to learn a lot about cool new products. It's not really a new product, but something new you're doing. So tell us a little about your background and introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. I'm Jon Bednarski with Sherwood Acres, and I'm a first-generation farmer and started farming back in around 2002 or 3. Originally grew up in Vermont and moved to Kentucky in 1980 with a log home and timber frame manufacturer. And my uncle was a dairy farmer, but I never really farmed, but, helped out on the farm as a kid. Used to take dairy cows to the county fair and obviously needed help during the hay season. And so, but jump ahead about 40 some odd years and around 2000, 2 or 3 started farming. My daughter got involved in horseback riding, and that kind of triggered the whole thing. And so that's kind of how we got started, and then got into the beef business, direct marketing beef business, and and then some new stuff we'll talk about.
Yeah, talk about that. How did you get into that? You guys do a lot of local stuff. I've actually, I know at Muscle Burger Bar you can get your burger, which I always try to do. So talk about your local, how you've been really a local business and doing that kind of stuff.
Sure. We, I knew a little bit about cattle just from growing up around the dairy farm, but really wanted to be in the direct beef marketing business. And one of the things that kind of spurred us was a grant back in 2005 that was available from Kentucky Department of Agriculture as well as Kentucky Cattlemen's Association. It was a $5,000 direct beef marketing grant, and it was kind of the catalyst to get us started in doing it, because farmers markets, which was where we wanted to sell, plenty of fruits and vegetables, but nobody was selling protein or meat products back in 2005. And so we wanted to show up and look like we'd been doing it for years. And so that money really was a big shot in the arm for us to be able to produce a professional display, have a website, literature. And so instead of opening up the trunk of the car and selling meat, we were set up to really do business. And we continued to do that, really still doing a little bit of it, but have cut back on that part for almost 19 years now, and doing them in metropolitan Louisville at St. Matthews and then the Oldham County market. And so what that did for us was really build our customer base. I think we have close to 3,000 people now on our email list.
Awesome.
And but knew that I wanted to direct market beef, and but didn't know really anything about farming, to be honest with you. And so got involved with the extension, cooperative extension, went through the Master Cattlemen's program, everything that they have to offer. Got involved with our conservation district because we knew the environmental side was going to be a big part of our business. Consumers want to know where their beef comes from today. And so did a lot of farm tours, and got involved with our district. And then, at the same time, got involved with the Kentucky Cattlemen's Association. And so because of the learning curve and not, being a second or third generation farmer, I needed all the help I could get, educationally. And, we've done nearly every cost share practice that you can do on the farm. There's a financial benefit, but the real benefit for us was to learn how to do it right.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the beef cattle, I always, you know me, I'm a livestock girl at heart. So what breed are we doing? You were one of the pioneers especially in your neck of the woods, finishing cattle. And so talk about the learning curve there from an area that's really, let's wean the calves and sell them. That was kind of the time frame we were still pushing guys to castrate and precondition, and you took a step even further and held them and finished them. So talk about that transition, breed choice, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Growing up in Vermont is very much a dairy state, and obviously there's beef cattle there, but got attracted to belted Galloway cattle, a Scottish breed, very unusual. Didn't want to do the same thing that everybody else was doing with black-hided cattle, and almost created a niche with that breed. We had a delivery van painted like a belted Galloway, and 75% of our sales today are home delivery. So anyway, so we started with that breed, and again, didn't know anything about it. My wife and 2 kids bought me 3 belted Galloways for Father's Day back in around 2003 or 4. And so 3 heifers. And, I had shown cattle a little bit, but and I thought my son might be interested, but he didn't really grow up on the farm, nor did my daughter. My daughter was involved in horseback riding, and that's how we ended up, buying a farm. Mm-hmm. But we bought a fallow farm. Nothing had been done on it for, years and years and years. And so we had to go in and, completely refence it and build barns, ponds, all that stuff, which most of that we, worked with Extension and also the Conservation District to make sure we were doing the right thing. And so, we went to our first farmers market, I think, in Louisville, would have been probably around 2005. And it just, people were interested in buying local protein. They'd never really seen it before. And we had a good presentation, as I mentioned. And so it just started to grow. And, we always kept an email list. And then we did get into a few restaurants. We were with Muscle and Burger Bar for, almost 8 years. Mm-hmm. And doing a lot of ground beef, mm-hmm. which ground beef was always a challenge when in direct marketing because there's so much of it. And we were selling differently at farmers markets. We were selling individual cuts, everything dry aged, vacuum sealed. So if you wanted to buy a pound of hamburg or 1 steak, you could. And that was a great way for consumers who weren't used to buying bulk, especially in metropolitan Louisville, to try the product.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, we found out over the years that we could actually sell more to an individual, and we're doing actually more of that now and less of the individual cuts. A lot less handling.
Do you find a lot of education needed? So I've got a very good friend that does direct marketing. He's been on the podcast, actually. And he always laughs and says it didn't take them long to figure out that one of the first things they need to do when they started doing more bulk was double-check freezer space before they got there because they home deliver, too. Did you find a lot of education was needed, or are you guys so many constant customers at this point, like freezer's ready when you get there and they've got plenty of space?
Yeah, I think that obviously people want to know when they're buying how much space does it take, and we have a chart that tells them that. But with individual cuts, and we're not selling whole cows. We're selling quarters,
right.
What we call a split quarter, because we're selling into metropolitan Louisville, and a lot of consumers don't even have big freezers, mm-hmm. and so you have to kind of fit it into what they have and know what they have. And the other thing we did too was we decided instead of just the basic cuts of burgers and steaks and roasts that we would come up with other value-added products for today's consumer, because a lot of people, they want to spend about 30 minutes cooking, no more. Mm-hmm. And so we have over 25 different products now, sweet Italian links, zesty Italian. We own a recipe to our own bacon cheeseburger bratwurst, which we made with a German guy a number of years ago. And, seasoned fajita strips and beef chorizo and beef breakfast sausage. A lot of those are ways to use burger, but it also are convenient products that somebody can come home and within 30 minutes they're eating. And, everything's vacuum sealed. And we even vacuum seal our steaks individually. So if you want to throw it in cold water and cook it in 30 minutes, you're ready to go. So I think we realized what our market was as we were branding the product and really worked towards that. And as that's transitioned into family packs, split quarters, and quarters, we've got a complete list on our website of what we include. So they got a pretty good idea when we show up how much stuff we got.
That's cool. Yeah. That's a lot of diversity just within, like you said, value added. How important do you think that's important when jumping into something like you're doing?
Well, I think it is to market the product thoroughly. So many times early on there was 200 pounds of ground beef left in the freezer, and how did you sell that? And we learned by making these value-added products that it was a way. And the economy also had an effect on that. When the economy kind of tanked back in 10 years ago or 12 years ago, the burger market just went crazy. It's like Muscle and Burger Bar. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought people would pay $15 to $18 for a burger meal, mm-hmm. But they do, and if it's a good product, they're happy with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I know where we're going to end up, so I want to get this in early because we run into each other a lot. You talk about working with the Conservation District. That's where we probably run into each other the most. Although you are a farm market member, and we appreciate you guys doing so much with Farm Bureau. I laughed and thought the other night was the first time I'd seen you at a Farm Bureau thing in a while, because normally it's with Leopold Award or the County Association of Conservation Districts. And so talk to us about really understanding, you talk about transitioning fallow ground into a working farm and how important that is. That's got to help with your story. Besides the fact that I know you're passionate about keeping the land the way it needs to be and doing things right. When you're talking to people, you can just be so honest about how you've brought your land into production and how you're doing it. Talk a little bit about kind of your environmental work and how important that is.
Sure. I think everybody has a passion when they get involved in farming, and ours was to just, really treat the ground and make it better than what we found it. And, when you buy fallow ground and you really don't know anything about it, you realize the amount of work that you have, to go through. And because we were beginning farmers, first-generation farmers, the first thing you say is, how do we do this? How do we build a shallow stream crossing across Harrods Creek so that we don't have problems with the cattle, we don't tear up the banks, we're not polluting the streams, and things like, fencing off our treed land so they don't go in and destroy a forest. And so I think the Conservation District, along with Extension, they focus on a lot of that stuff, obviously. And with the Conservation District, there's so many different cost share programs that guide you in that direction. And at the time, our district conservationist, Kurt Mason, had been with NRCS for over 40 years. And Kurt was just the greatest guy to work with. He would come out to the farm, you'd walk the property, decide what things you could do on the farm realistically, and then put together the paperwork. You'd sign it. You had a time period to get it done. He came out and did an inspection. You got a check, and then you moved on to the next thing. And, we started with, and our farms have always been smaller farms anyway. Oldham County, cost of property is pretty expensive. And so we had 50 acres out there. And then we had another 100-acre farm in Henry County out in the Newcastle area. Again, was a fallow farm. And so you would have thought, I'd have learned my lesson after the first one. But, we end up buying a lot of our own equipment. And, that's just part of what I like to do. I like to get my hands dirty and see it grow. And, at the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the month, you can go back and you can look at that farm and you can say, look what I've done. And you can see the results. And again, I can't say it enough. If you're not passionate about farming, you can't do it.
Right.
Because of the time commitment. And I will say this, financially, I didn't start farming until I was in my mid to late 40s. And so, financially, I was able to do some things that, beginning farmers, I call myself a beginning farmer, but I'm not a young farmer.
Right.
Can't do. And there's great programs out there for them. And these cost share programs, doesn't matter what your age is, and we took advantage of everything. And, whether it was the CAPE program, tobacco settlement program, EQIP program, state cost share, we've done them all.
Yeah, I think it's my generation's known for wanting to be the YouTube fixers, and those, it's awesome and it is helpful and it's funny when I, gig my parents to figure out something real quick on YouTube when we need it. But there is nothing that takes the place of when you find that right mentor, that right expert to get feet on the ground with you on the farm. It's just a different level of assistance, of help, of guidance. So I appreciate you at the age you got to start being so willing to take so much information, because it is hard. It's a little bit of a hit to your pride when you're like, well, I've had the money and the finances to get going, but you got to have this moment of like, but do I have the knowledge to do it right? And so kudos to you, because that can be challenging, but you had some awesome people. That y'all are in a very good point with some really good people in that area, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, and I just can't say enough to get involved, to young farmers or beginning farmers, to get involved in your community, whether that's with, cooperative extension. I was on the council for years. I was on the district board for years. I served on the state level for a number of years, a couple of terms, and did the same on the conservation side. And, just getting involved, you kind of get that inside scoop a little bit, but you know what's going on, and you don't always have to seek out the information, but it's there. And, somebody's going to get those funds and somebody's going to get that assistance, and it ought to be just should be me or you.
I love it.
So talk about we're posting this at a certain time of year. We're having you in to talk about a new adventure that you've been working on, and we want to learn more about kind of the why you wanted to get into it, and kind of what's the logistics of it too as well. That I think people would be really surprised too. But talk about your Christmas tree farm kind of element that you're adding to your operation.
Right. As when our kids grew up, we always used to go out and cut a Christmas tree, and I did as a child living in Vermont. And of course, in Vermont, you just went out in the woods and cut one, but that's not always as easy today. And so back in 2021, just a few years ago, my daughter and her husband and my wife and were talking about cutting Christmas trees as kids. And my daughter said, well, why don't we plant some trees? We had purchased a farm down on Harrington Lake in Mercer County. And my sister and her husband moved from Oregon to be near us. They built next door to us. And so they were interested in the idea. And so we thought, well, do you put a couple hundred trees in there and, supply family and friends and always, kind of doing this startup business and fixing fallow land. And it got to be a little bit more than that. And so in 2022, we put our first trees in the ground and decided to start with 500 trees. And, the life or the timetable of growing a tree is about 6 to 8 years, depending upon the species. And so, you got to continue to plant every year so that you can replenish, those original areas that you cut. So we did something very unusual in the Christmas tree industry. We went out and we bought 500 4-gallon trees that were already about 3 feet tall, as opposed to putting in a seedling. When I was with the Conservation District, we used to do a tree giveaway every year, 4,000 trees, and people would plant them. And so we thought, well, we're going to get that 2 or 3 year jump because the price of a cut or a cut tree, what they call choose and cut, where people come to the farm and cut trees, is raising in price. And, it could be anywhere from $120 up to several hundred, depending upon the size for the experience. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, well, if we can cut 2 or 3 years off the process and get a jump start on it, we'll do that. So we put in 500 trees, Norway spruce and white spruce, and we looked very closely at what people were growing in the state. Not trying to reinvent the wheel, because there's certain species that just don't grow here. Mm-hmm. Too much heat, too much humidity, soil conditions aren't right. So we did soil tests, and then we got involved with the Kentucky Christmas Tree Association early on, so that we could be a part of another organization and learn from them, and just found that they were all helpful. But it was a small group. It was only about 15, 20 members, and we actually hosted them at our farm last fall, not this year, but last fall, and we had 65 people there. And out of those 65 people, there was about 30 newbies, just like us, who were wanting to get into the business, who saw the opportunity. And we're just tickled to death with that, because there's plenty of room. Just like in the beef business, there's plenty of room for all of us. And so we're now, this spring will be our 4th year planting. And the first year we planted 500. Our goal initially was 1,000, and so we planted 1,500 last year to catch up, and we planted 1,000 the year before that, and we'll plant about 1,000 this year. And so we need to get about 7,000 or 8,000 trees in the ground. And then my brother-in-law and my sister, who live next door, they've got about 1,000 trees in the ground also, and we'll do some pre-cutting of trees there and then bring them over to our farm next door to sell them as pre-cuts. But the ones that are on our farm, you'll actually, walk out there, cut your own tree and bring it in. And we're in the process now of finishing an old tobacco barn with a gift shop. We had actually hoped to open this year buying pre-cut trees from another grower in the state, or possibly out of state. We'd prefer to buy in-state, and then try to generate some income, because it's, as I mentioned, it's a little like the bourbon industry. You keep putting it in the barrels and wait. And so we are actually doing something this year, even though we didn't get the gift shop open. We've got a couple of events we're going to be attending where we're making Christmas wreaths and porch pots to get our name out there, build that customer base, and just get people involved with us and get them out to the farm.
So who all in the family is involved with the operation? I mean, so you've talked about your sister and your brother-in-law are now here, and maybe they're not on the actual experience portion that's on your ground, but they're part of the production and all this. This is going to take more players having a gift shop and doing these things. How do you handle the labor? How do you handle the different pieces? How are you guys planning for that?
Sure. Well, my daughter's involved. They have 2 children, 9 and 6, and so they're involved. She and her husband are involved. She was out there this week with us making Christmas trees, and so and then my sister, she'd been in marketing all her life. Perfect. And event planning. Mm-hmm. And so
that worked out well.
Yeah. So our barn is set up that we could host 70 or 80 people in it as well. Originally thought of about a wedding venue, and then we kind of saw what happened with COVID and thought, do we really want that 6 to 8 month involvement? And, with Christmas trees, you can be as simple as 3 or 4 weekends a year. Not that you're not doing something all the time in terms of the growth side.
Right.
And then my brother-in-law, he's retired electrical engineer, and so he's been extremely valuable. And then I was in the building business, and then my son-in-law's in marketing, and so we've got a real good mix of people. And fortunately, we've been able to fill all of the areas that we need to at this point. And then my son also works in another business that we own, and so he's there some as well.
You have a very skilled family. This has worked out well.
Well, I think we looked at that originally and said, can we even do this? And did it make sense to do it? And, and if I hadn't have been farming with cattle for 15 or 16 years and I just started this Christmas tree thing, I'm not sure I would have made it.
Yeah. Because
you realize what the commitment is after you've raised cattle and everything that it takes to do that, and the retail side of that business, because and if you don't have that, that wherewithal or that passion that I've mentioned before, you just can't do this.
Yeah.
So, it's like somebody the other day, our farm is gated, but we had the gate open because we had a bunch of stuff going on. These 2 ladies drove up and they said, "Oh, we saw you on Facebook. When are you going to be open?" And, "Oh, I can see you're not open." I said, "Hey, let's get out. Let's take a walk through the gift shop as it is now." And, that's how you make connections. And people just want to, come out to the farm and be a part of it.
So what led you to the passion of, so you've been working with consumers, of course, being at the farmer's market and that kind of thing. What led you to the passion? That's a different step, is having people come to your place and experience it on your land. Yeah. And it's very funny. I think COVID taught a lot of us that thought, we'll be fine. We'll just have people come out. Those guys down the road do it. And then we realized that was not meant for us. So it takes a different personality type and a different passion and maybe another way. How did you figure out that was what you guys wanted to do? How'd you figure out you were open to that?
Sure. Well, being in the beef farming and being involved with the conservation district and extension and stuff like that, we always had field days. And, people just want to know where their food comes from or their Christmas tree comes from. And, I think that's the greatest thing there is. And so we're passionate about that. We want them out there. And so we knew that was going to be the direction that we would take. It would be a choose and cut operation, and kind of like what we did, when our kids were small. And so I don't think it was ever a question of, yes or no. It's just, let's do this. And again, we're not fully into it yet because we're not open, totally. But either you like that stuff or you don't. And and I'm a people person, and one of the things that I loved about direct marketing beef is you get the opportunity to see what people are hearing. They'll tell you what's on their mind. They'll tell you what they saw on social media, and to be able to tell them, your side of the story, and then let them make the decision. We don't want to push it down their throat. We want them to make the decision, but let them see the other side.
Yeah.
We were literally, I was at, this will timestamp us a little bit, but I was at an Ag Council Summit, an agriculture summit today, and was on a panel this morning talking about farmland transition, which feels like my new full-time job. But we were talking about how do we do better with the consumer and how do we do better getting new farmers. And so on the consumer route, that's exactly what I said when I was talking to the group. I said, no matter how hard it is, we have to not fight each other, but give factual information and let consumers get an intelligent decision made on their own. And that's really hard when you're trying to sell something, when you're trying to advocate for what you know in your heart of hearts, you're passionate about. This is the right methodology. This is the right way you want to do it. We've got to just give people true fact and let them figure it out. So I do appreciate you saying that, because a lot of direct to sales, it's hard because you're competing against Walmart. You're competing against a different method of people producing food. And so you want to make sure people understand food is safe, but give them facts of why they can make decisions for their own. So I do appreciate the education piece, because you probably get to do it more than a lot of us do one-on-one all the time.
Yeah. And that's, and I was in sales and marketing for 35, 40 years in the log home and timber frame business. And, when you're talking about somebody's house and their design and, where their kids are going to be and stuff like that, I mean, that's just, that's real personal. And this becomes personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
So you got a couple more years. So you're ready for all these folks to come out and venture out to the farm. And so this is another piece of diversity too. I mean, it sounds like you're even diversifying the trees into wreaths and all kinds of things. How do you think of these things? You're kind of you think kind of out of the box a little bit even with your beef. So where does this come from? Some of this passion to think kind of out of the box.
Sure. I would be remiss in saying that some of it's not financial, that, you need to have cash flow. And, we're just spending money, not only remodeling the barn, but, planting trees. I mean, it costs, thousands of dollars to plant a tree crop. And one of the things I didn't mention is that, fortunately, we put in irrigation, and even with irrigation this year, the drought that we had, lots of rain in the spring, we still had 15, 16% loss. I mean, there's people that plant Christmas trees with no irrigation that could lose 75 or 80% of their trees. Mm. So, and as a matter of fact, my brother-in-law that put in the system is just doing a newsletter piece for our Kentucky Christmas Tree Association on how to do that and what the cost is, because we want to help them. I mean, there's room, like I said earlier, for all of us. Once you get involved in with the association, I think you learn a lot of stuff too. And then, we're on Great Lakes Facebook, Great Lake Tree Growers Facebook, which is a huge group. Any of those northern states are big in Christmas trees. And we're members of the Mid-America Christmas Tree Growers Association. We were up in Columbus, Ohio this summer at a place that we actually buy trees from. And they have 200,000 Christmas trees in the ground.
Oh, my gosh. That's unreal.
And we're talking about having 10 or 12,000 trees in the ground. And so there's all
sounds like a lot, right?
Yeah. But it's very similar to generational farming. You don't start out and put 200,000 trees in the ground. You start out with 1,000 a year and you build, and then at some point, you either take it to the next level or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So we are getting into the Christmas season. It's a very holiday-filled day. Uh-huh. You guys, you talk about you're kind of doing the slow rollout as we wait for our trees to grow, which tree farming just cracks me up. People that think farming is frustrating should watch a tree grow. It's like watching paint dry, it feels like, when I talk to my tree farming guys that start a new group. But so when we're talking about these events, tell us kind of where you guys will be and what kind of things you have to offer this year in terms of the wreaths and different festivals and things like that.
Yeah. Well, we've got three things that are going for us in the next 30 days or so. Tomorrow actually is our kickoff at Shaker Village over in Harrodsburg, and they have a Christmas market tomorrow, Saturday, from 10 to 5. And so they've got maybe a couple dozen vendors that'll be set up over there with not only crafts and gifts. I think we're the only ones with Christmas tree stuff. And so we've made up about a dozen Christmas wreaths. We did with different sizes and then different degrees of decorating. And then another popular item is what they call porch pots. For someone who doesn't want to hang something on the door, they can put it out on the porch. They can put it in their foyer. If we do a smaller version, it could be a centerpiece on the table. And so we'll have those available. And it's a little bit early because, the needle retention is something you're concerned about. We don't want to sell stuff, and then 2 weeks before Christmas, there's no needles left on it.
Right.
And so, so we're a little early. So we'll take orders as our plan at Shaker Village tomorrow. Take orders for people that, we'll deliver them the first week of December, or they can come to the farm, which we'd love to have them do that. And pick them up. And then our next event is going to be in Oldham County on Shop Small Saturday, November 30th. and we'll actually have inventory there to sell. We won't take orders there, although we could take some. And then our next event after that is on Saturday, I think it's December 7th in Danville. It's called Small Town Christmas. They have a big parade in the evening, and we'll be set up there. So that'll give us an opportunity to get our feet wet. And really, consumers will tell you what they want, and they'll tell you what they don't want, and they'll tell you what they like and what they don't like. And I don't know, it's just like the farmer's market. There's no better way to educate yourself and become savvy as to what consumers want. Just talk to them. Just show them what you got.
So you have a lot of great resources out there. I've seen your website's very thorough. It's very out in the open. You talk a lot about what you guys do. How can folks learn more about your all's farm and what you guys are up to?
Yeah, Sherwood Acres Beef is the beef side of us, our website, and then Sherwood Acres Christmas Trees is our website, and then we have Facebook sites that are the same, Sherwood Acres Christmas Tree and Sherwood Acres Beef. And so we're sharing pictures constantly because we're in that growth mode at Sherwood Acres Christmas Trees, and we just posted our porch pots and our wreaths on there, I think yesterday or the day before, to let people know what we're doing. And we've got my son-in-law bought a 1935 Ford red 1-ton truck, which if you got a Christmas tree farm, you got to have a truck.
Absolutely, and a red one is a good photo op.
Right. Right, and photo ops, we just love that stuff. And, when people, when we really open up the gift shop, they'll be able to come out there and we'll have a little bit of food in the kitchen. And so just want them to get involved. And, we'll have our beef out there, the cattle are out there. And so it's a great spot, and I think people enjoy it.
That'll be awesome. Well, we're excited to be a part of it. I live right down the road in Springfield, so I'm going to try to sneak over to Danville and maybe snag something over there, but it'll be very fun. We love, that is one of the favorite parts for me is people that want people on their farm. You get to tell your story. They get to see what you're doing, so I think it's awesome. So kudos to you guys. It's great seeing you guys grow and continue to expand.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, listeners. Be sure to subscribe to our larger podcast, Kentucky Farm Life, and we'll see you next time on Between the Rows.